We've seen the roadmap for Destiny 2, and throughout the spring of this year, a number of pretty important changes and updates are coming to the game. Objectively, these updates are going to make Destiny 2 a better game, but should these things have been there at launch? Well, yes, they should have, or there should have been a bit of a plan for that stuff. I totally understand that common sentiment that I see these days, too little, too late. Nonetheless though, good updates are coming to Destiny. Bungie's communication has been better than we've ever seen, quite frankly, but there is a big looming issue that we're not seeing any real evidence of significant change towards yet, and that is the real loot issue with this game. So let's talk about the so-called collection game. I'm going to read a statement from Luke Smith. This is from a month or so post-launch when the cracks in the endgame really started to widen, but in reference to random rolls, Luke Smith said, "I'm still a pretty big supporter of the change. I believe that ultimately, the Destiny franchise is heading towards becoming a collection game. I understand that we have shortcomings right there now, and we need to address that, but with respect to making duplicates better, this is still one of the things we have ideas for." And of course that runs in tandem with that other famous statement about the 3rd, 9th, 10th, whatever it was, Better Devils situation. But in that first quote, Luke Smith referred to the collection game. He clearly said that the franchise is moving towards the collection game, and that has for sure been a pretty obvious focus in the live game for D2. At the same time though, we are seeing big elements of progression being focused on going forward. You know, ranked PvP is the biggest example of that. So Bungie are realizing that the collection game on its own, the one that we have right now, is not enough, and that's a very good thing for us as players, just in the same way that the sandbox updates that are coming in March are also a very good thing. So what is the big missing element? Well, aside from the other issues, it's loot, which is going to need a lot of work, and I don't feel like Bungie have fully figured out how they're going to solve this problem yet. And of course, when I'm talking about loot, I'm talking primarily about weapons and armor, perks, mods, and all of that stuff, because whether you like random rolls or not, whether you like the new weapon system or not, there are a lot of missing elements when it comes to gear. We lost random rolls, we lost stat complexity and perks for armor, and we lost a fair amount of power in our perks and abilities, and while everybody has mixed feelings here, it's safe to say that these elements and the hunt that comes from randomization or configuration of gear at the top end is still incredibly important for Destiny. We sometimes argue about them, but it's worth remembering these things were an intrinsic part of D1, and the absence of these things right now leaves a pretty big void in their place. The challenge for Bungie is going to be, how do we make our loot interesting again? Because I feel like if that doesn't happen, then you could bring 1,000 other great features into the game and ultimately fail to fix its core issue. So I want to get your opinions on this, guys, but here are some options which haven't met their potential yet. So firstly, the mod system is going to be one of those things. Mods are currently being reworked to be more influential in the game. Recently though, I noticed something. So we have these new raid mods, which are great if you're in the raid. If you're not in the raid though, they are essentially useless. And on top of this, you've used your mod slot, and you can always switch back to a non-raid mod and then switch back to a raid mod when you're in the raid, or you could simply only use raid gear in the raid, or have multiple sets of raid gear, right? This cannot be the most elegant way to tackle this issue, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if they added a raid mod slot but also kept the original mod slot, so you could have bonus damage after melee kills and kinetic munition loader at the same time. To me, that would have made gear feel even more powerful and customizable all at once. I'm not only referencing raid gear here though. My hope is that with mods 2.0 it's not simply a rework of the mods themselves, but also an expansion of that system. Wouldn't it be nice if we could see at least a second mod slot open up on Masterwork armor? You know, you could also add more weight to the Masterwork system while you were at it. If it was PvP gear, it could come with a standard mod slot, but then a PvP mod slot where you could even have bonuses like Second Wind or Arc Double Down, like some of the Destiny 1 perks. You could have PvE gear or future strike specific loot come with an additional PvE or strike mod slot. These are just very granular examples. Don't kind of blow this out of proportion as being the big idea, but also I think we need real weapon mods as well. You know, I'd love a hand cannon reload mod on my hand cannon, or even better stuff than that. My main point is, with more options and possibilities that are tuned correctly, we can actually make our gear feel like it matters more. Moving away from the mod system though, outside of that you have randomization of perks, but this comes in two places. So of course we have armor. Honestly, I think random rolls on armor should have remained to be a thing. The perk setup for armor in Destiny 1 was pretty excellent, really. You had the key stats, intellect, discipline, strength, stats which I still think should be separate or could be separated via the mod system and added to Destiny 2, because on the subject of that stuff, right now we're having to choose either increased grenade cooldown or power munition loader, for example, and I think that coming from the option sets we had in the previous game, this kind of decision making doesn't feel very fun, and that's why I spoke about having multiple mod slots, purely as an example, but having us pick between one perk that doesn't quite feel strong enough and another perk which doesn't quite feel strong enough is simply not fun compared to how we did things before. I think that as well as mods, perks, stats, and some degree of randomization need to be considered very seriously when it comes to armor pieces. But then of course we do have the weapons. Now weapons suffer from similar issues. I think that in a world where they are fixed, there are too many lackluster rolls and very repetitive weapons right now. Rick Kakis actually made a video about the issues with weapon archetypes, and he made a fantastic point that I just simply can't argue with. Uriel's Gift, the Number, Positive Outlook, Jiangshi, these are all nearly the same weapon. Same sounds, visuals, rate of fire, and even basic behavior with the exception of a few perks. And it's a fantastic example of everything which makes loot less exciting in Destiny 2. I think at base, archetypes and their roles need to be more interesting, and some folks may kind of flame me for this, but at this point, considering the many iterations of Destiny we've had, I think a lot of us would prefer power and fantasy that goes with that stuff over balance. Don't take this as black and white though, you know, things don't have to either be broken or boring. Either way, we can argue between ourselves as to whether random rolls should return, but the fact of the matter is that the collection game, that term, it is only a part of Destiny, and without truly meeting the potential of your progression game, combined with individual customization and or randomization of weapons, armor, and other gear in the game, without meeting more of that potential once again, I think that Destiny 2 will continue to suffer. So the purpose of this video is to try and highlight that as a community, I don't think the collection game is what most of us want, or at least not on its own. It's always a part of Destiny, but if we wanted a pure collection game, you know, if that's all we were interested in, then you'd see people being way more interested in things like Crimson Days right now. At the end of the day, weapons and armor which fails to excite in a sandbox which inhibits player fantasy compared to what we've seen in the past, and elements which are failing to provide progression and meaning, these are some of the huge issues for Destiny right now, because they affect everything, you know? They aren't simply weapons and gear, they are the sandbox. They are power, progression, the loot system, and right now we're just not seeing evidence of that changing in a big way. It's worth me adding, again, that's not to discredit the stuff that Bungie are doing. Everything we're seeing is very, very important. I just think that this subject is much more fundamentally important to Destiny, and I hope that Bungie knows how big of a deal it is. It can't simply be bandaged up. It can, however, change if Bungie make the right calls, and I really hope that that's something they have a plan for, at least in the very long term, if that's the way it has to be. So, I just wanted to kind of give those thoughts, guys. You know, I've taken a few months and a few weeks to like really think about these issues and see what Bungie are offering us. And this is where I stand. I think the things I've listed here will remain to be core issues unless they are addressed in a significant fashion and really kind of reconsidered. But you can listen to me forever. I just wanted to highlight the issue. More importantly, I want to hear what you guys think, because that helps me to continue to be able to make feedback like this. I'm trying to represent, you know, both how I feel playing the game, but also what I see people saying, because that's something I'm exposed to an awful lot. I've got you guys in my comment section, I've got the Twitch chat, I'm looking at Reddit all the time. So all I'm really trying to do is round up and highlight as many of the real issues as I can and try and have a positive influence and conversation about those things. So as always, let me know your thoughts down below. If you have enjoyed the video, a like is very much appreciated. If not, then the other button is completely fine, but do let me know your thoughts in a constructive manner. If you want to hear more conversation about Destiny 2, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you feel like it. For now though, I hope you guys have an awesome day.